Here we go. Okay, there we go. Cool. So this video is talking about the research task we were given. It was about rhythm, and we were tasked with finding two songs that we liked, or just two songs in general, to analyze the rhythm sections of the songs, or just the rhythm of the songs, and evaluate them. So the two songs I chose were Two Dots by Lucene and Take Five by Dave Brubeck, the Dave Brubeck Quartet. These are two songs that I feel show more complicated rhythms than just a simple like 4-to-the-floor beat or something like that. So the song Two Dots, the Lucene song, uses heavy like syncopation. If you listen to the song, the first thing you'll hear is two almost polyrhythmic echoes, but it's a rhythmic echo. It's been used as a rhythmic device to create that kind of syncopation in the song from the get-go. Like you have that from the get-go. And then Dave Brubeck, the Take Five song, I chose that because it's in 5/4 time, which is an irregular time signature, which is not commonly used in most music, especially pop music. Which is why I chose the two. So I've done my external reviews, and they have talked about the more production side and also just the style of the song, and I've put those in the portfolio already. But what I really wanted to talk about was the way that they use rhythm differently, but also in a similar way. So they're both very uncommon practices for mainstream music, which makes sense because Lucene is much more of like a housey electronica producer with a flavour for all the kind of weird and wonderful. But they're also a media producer. They do music for sound and screen. Sorry, music for screen, which is to me quite explanatory as to why this song has come about in such a fashion. It's an incredibly hi-fi, high-end production, and it's very clean, very presentable, which obviously will come from being a producer and having the time and money to invest into it, but also by being a composer or producer for screen, you generally are working with much more specific terms for what the sound has to be. So like you want an ambient sound, you want a sad romantic sound, like there's very specific things. So they've obviously, their career has been built from that, and they haven't actually put much music out. They do seem to very much focus on their scores for screen and film. So the main differences between the two that I've noticed is it's essentially, oh wait, no, sorry. I'm going to talk about Lucene. No, take Dave Brubeck. I don't know what I'm saying. The Dave Brubeck Quartet, playing this 5/4 song. So it's kind of contemporary jazz. It's it's one of the jazz standards. It's one of those, those songs that if you go to like something like Berkeley or something, you'll definitely hear about 1,000 times. Which I think is quite cool. And the big difference between the two songs is the way that they're set up. So it's very much, a contemporary versus an exploratory setting for the songs. It's particularly, a jazz versus electronica comparison, which I think is actually closer than a lot of other music, but at the same time, vastly different, just because that's how music is. One of the main links which I can make between jazz and electronica, especially like IDM, downbeat, down-tempo stuff like Two Dots. What was I going to say? I might have to edit that out. Okay, there we go, and that's so yeah, electronica uses a lot of odd time signatures, odd techniques that ping your ear. They're like little sound bites. They make make you notice it, and it makes it seem kind of off kilter, offbeat. Just slightly, the axis is slightly skewed, which I think is quite cool. Whereas the Dave Brubeck Take Five song, that'll be because it's a jazz standard and it's been written in such a like a contemporary way, it's a very solid technique, but it's I would assume it's exploratory for its time for when it was released. I mean, you don't hear many songs in 5/4 in general, and this song definitely utilizes the 5/4 like a swung 5/4. Not exactly swung, but it creates a swung feel. Like if you look at the drum patterns, it's it's swung because it's essentially in 10/4 for the drum pattern. A lot of it is kind of written as if it's a 2-bar section, as if in terms of like a 1-bar or a 4-bar. They put it as a 2-bar in 5/4, so it becomes 10 beats per such a section where it repeats, which is quite unusual in itself. It's a quite unusual technique to use, but then also while having notes held over the bar line, over the 5th beat, which is used in the song, it kind of creates that very like unexpected sound. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. It creates a sound where it kind of keeps leading on itself, you know? You're not counting to 4, you're not doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. You know, it just kind of carries itself naturally, just because of the pulse of the beat. Which is quite impressive to me, to be honest. So yeah, obviously there are many techniques in rhythm. You obviously have your tempo, your key and your pitch, your accents, your pulse, your beat, your measure, your bar. So these are all very similar terms that have been coined to be slightly different to each other for different for different reasons. So things like, measure or bar, that's typically going to be more Take 5, Dave Brubeck sheet music. It's going to be written out and it's going to be contemporary, like jazz, classical, and I guess most modern sheet music these days. But for stuff like electronica, like Two Dots, you won't be composing it in a written sense. You'll be composing it on a computer, or you'll be composing it on, a Groovebox or anything. You won't be writing it in the same way that you would write a classical piece. A classically trained composer will obviously do things differently to a modern composer, and a jazz composer will all do. That's all the thing. But jazz and classic is very similar in terms of how it's played and how the entire industry of those two are set up. In terms of like the music wise, obviously that's not for every single part of those two genres, but they do have a lot of similarities. Whereas the electronica is an entirely new wave, and while I would expect them to, maybe make notes or like analyze, have written what they were doing, or have it somewhere so they know that what they're doing and they know how to continue what they're doing. But they won't be writing sheet music like composers have for hundreds of years before, which I think is quite cool. We've definitely got very fortunate to be in the point where electronic music and non-classical music is actually accessible to a much wider audience, so that the people that aren't classically trained right, as some people might say it, they're having to compete with these new composers, and there's two very different techniques that they use, but they both have successful creations. But it's also kind of why classical music hasn't really been at the forefront of the music industry for quite a while now. I'd say over a good 100 years, which is quite sad, but electronic is the future. So accents and pulses, you can hear that in the Lucene track in the Two Dots, where it says two da. It's that kind of, you have that pulse on the initial, and then the delay is obviously less. The feedback, is it the feedback level? No, it's just the general volume level of the delay is not as loud as the initial vocal sample, the two, which I think creates that kind of rhythm of up and down, up and down. It kind of creates that natural pulse of two da two. It's kind of, you're really you're kind of doing the 1 and 3. Sorry, the dog's came in. You're accenting the the first and third beat of the bar, which is, very simple kind of do da to, it's very common practice, but the way they've done it with the kind of syncopated delays makes it seem a bit more offbeat, off kilter, which really grabbed my attention when I first listened to this, and which is why I chose it for this, because in my head this is like the ultimate example of unique rhythms in music. So in terms of which song I preferred, which I feel like is something I should talk about, I definitely prefer Two Dots, purely on the basis of, it's a much more involving song. While I do like Take 5 by Dave Brubeck, the ridiculously long drum solo in it does kind of bore me out every single time I listen to it, because I'm not a drummer, and it just doesn't really do it for me. I love the song, and I love the beat of the song, and I love the way that it's in 5/4, and I love the way that it affects the song. But I don't think it can compare to Two Dots, because that song, both songs were very eye-opening in my terms of, my music library in my head of what I like to listen to. Both of those songs opened up a huge variation of music. So for Lucene, it would be in IDM, that kind of intelligent dance music, which I absolutely love. And then Take 5 was much more like contemporary jazz, and just that kind of music, something a bit weird, but something very fun. And I'm pretty sure Take 5 somehow got me into Herbie Hancock. So, so it's all in good faith. What was unexpected that I found? I think one of the most unexpected things was that Lucene isn't this is very off topic in terms of rhythm, but Lucene isn't a very consistently releasing artist. They've made, I think, pretty sure Two Dots was released in something like 2006 or something, like it's very, very long time ago. And they haven't really made much music since, which kind of sucks. And they'll be adding the songs and, my review of these songs to my portfolio.